Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I worked in Palestine for a time helping victims of war, and I have quite a few small paranormal tales, but I figure I should post my most lengthy one. I was staying with a Palestinian family and helping their daughter, who was suffering from pneumonia and had her lungs damaged by inhaling smoke and dust after a bombing. She wasn't going to live much longer, and the whole family knew it. It was depressing to watch, but late one night, while I was sitting with her making sure her breathing was stable, I heard a rustling and whispering from just outside the window on the other side of her room. I got up to go and investigate. The whispering immediately tipped me off it wasn't a stray cat or dog, and I peeked out through the window to see who or what was there. Immediately I felt like I was aware of some kind of presence, like that feeling of standing in a room with someone, but not looking at them, but being aware of where they were. I heard the whisper again, rather clearly. It was the name of the little girl. It sounded like it was coming from all directions, and I was looking back and forth, absolutely befuddled by where it could be coming from, and then a sinking realization hit me. The mom of the family had talked about experiencing something similar, and always said it was the Djinn, or Djinns, and I had overheard her multiple times reciting a prayer from the Quran out loud because she thought she had heard the Djinn. I couldn't remember what the prayers were at the moment, and I called out asking who was there, hoping that maybe it was just some neighbor kid. I heard a whisper from behind me, and immediately I shot around before I could even register what was being said, and saw a dark cloud in the corner of the room quickly dissipate. I was firmly freaked out, and I sat down with the little girl again to make sure that at least she was safe. And then it chose to appear to me. It crawled out from the shadows on all fours, all black with matted, shaggy fur, really more like overgrown body hair, and tusks sticking out from the side of its mouth. I was absolutely petrified, and it called my name in a hushed groan, over and over until I nodded reluctantly, barely being able to move my head. It offered me a deal. I give one of my legs, and the girl makes a perfect recovery. I don't, and the girl dies the next morning. I panicked, and I was praying internally that this was a dream or some kind of late-night hallucination. I felt my mouth moving, and I heard myself agree, even though I was absolutely not in control of my own body. The Djinn chuckled to himself and stood up, towering over me and his head almost reaching the ceiling of the room. He grinned a crooked grin at me before falling backwards and vanishing into that same dark cloud. I felt the control over my body return as I scrambled to grab the trash can in the room to throw up. The little girl in the bed was awoken by me scrambling to throw up and was dazed and confused, asking me if I was all right and what's going on. I wiped my mouth clean and told her it was nothing. I just dozed off and had a nightmare. In the following week, the girl made a miraculous recovery. Even the doctors at the hospital were stunned. Her lungs were absolutely perfect, even if they had been failing just days beforehand. I still felt that sinking, creeping dread in me about how I promised my leg to the Djinn for her life. And it wouldn't be until many years later that it would catch up to me. Around the time it did, I was living in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The exact events of how I lost my leg is kind of blurred, especially to me, and even the doctors who saved my life didn't know what had happened. The long and short of it is that I had gotten into some freak automobile accident, my right leg being the only thing hit, but the bones in it snapping so violently that there would be absolutely no way for my leg to be repaired, let alone heal naturally. I opted to have it amputated and took a small loan to get a prosthetic leg. That's all for now. I can share some of the smaller stories if anyone is interested. I do have another Djinn story. This one was during my time in Egypt, and it's perhaps a lot lighter. I suppose I'll greentext it. Be me, living in Egypt to learn more about Arabic culture. Just got home from a late-night walk. I live in an apartment complex. Family that lives right next to me calls me in for something. Guy at the door. I think the dad wants to show me something. I'm a little sketched out, and I ask if it's okay if I just watch from the door. He says it is, and I stand in the door frame watching whatever's going on inside. There's this small Barbie doll thing, or maybe a Barbie knockoff, standing on top of the coffee table, dancing. Dad's kids are huddled in a corner of the room absolutely terrified, visibly shaking and so scared they aren't even making a sound. Dad is completely nonchalant about it, grabs a copy of the Quran from a bookshelf and starts shouting at the doll. It gets flung out of him. Slaps the doll out of the air. Completely breaks into pieces and scatters on the floor. I am in complete disbelief at what has unfolded before me. Father shouts a few prayers at the doll before throwing it out the window. My face went. A lot of paranormal encounters I've had kind of go like this. Muslims are nuts when it comes to paranormal happenings. Most Christians I've met often scramble and get real panicky about the idea of ghosts or demons. But Muslims will see open proof of the supernatural and just shout Quran verses at it like shooing a cat. Poltergeists don't exist in Islam, it's always jinn. Christ, come to think of it, this adds a whole new layer of spooks to another story of mine. My mom was battling cancer back in the States and passed away while I was in Palestine. I was distraught about the news, taking a vacation from my work, although I was unable to return to the States thanks to Israeli bullshit. I had enough money to get a nice hotel, however, and I found myself just curled up in bed, angry and sad. Not being able to go home to attend my mom's funeral and being surrounded by the deaths of innocent people, I tried my hardest to keep my spirits up even in dark times, but man, my mom's death broke me for a while. I got woken up in the middle of the night by the feeling of something cold brushing down my neck. I immediately shot wide awake, eyes darting around the room, and I saw my mom standing there. The way the hotel was laid out, I was laying in a bed with a glass door to the balcony really close to it, with moonlight coming in through the doors, and my mom was standing in front of my bed at the very edge of the moonlight. She opened her arms for me, asking for me to come hug her, but I couldn't bring myself to hug her. I felt afraid and sick the entire experience. It felt like I remained this way for hours, only breaking out of it when the sun began to rise. If there was a jinn, I'm spooked to think about what would have happened if I actually did anything and wasn't just paralyzed in bed. This one is maybe a bit closer to actual spooks, but again, Muslims are chads when it comes to dealing with happenings, so. This one comes from Palestine. Again, I was riding with a few ex-Hamas guys, just hanging out and listening to their stories. They were nice fellows. It was getting late and we were pretty far from the urban areas of Palestine. We decided it was time to head back, but night approached much faster than any of us expected. It was pitch black out for some reason, but I think it was only about 9 p.m. While we were all riding back in the shitty pickup truck that one of the ex-Hamas guys had, who I'll just call him Aspro for now, broke down. Curses and groans were shared, and we gathered around to try and fix it. Thankfully, a few of us brought flashlights, and of course Hamaspro had some tools on hand. While he was fixing up whatever was wrong with the truck, this loud, hyena-like cackle rang out across the hills. We weren't too taken aback. Striped hyenas are actually native to the West Bank, but something about the cackle sounded way too loud for a hyena. I told Hamaspro about it, and he shrugged and very casually remarked, "Could be a ghoul." His sheer don't give a care attitude calmed my concerns in a weird way, but I was still nervous about whatever made that sound. Once we had gotten the truck fixed, we continued our drive, but Hamaspro slammed the brakes and started shouting in Arabic that there was something in the road. I was startled, but everyone else in the truck was really more annoyed than anything, standing up and beginning to shout at whatever was in the road. I peeked above the top of the truck to get a look at whatever was in the road. It looked a whole lot like the Djinn I had encountered when I was taking care of the Palestinian girl, but it seemed a lot bigger and more ape-like. It began beating its chest and howling in response to this absolute chaos. Hamaspro gets out of his truck with his pocket copy of the Quran, brandishing it like he's about to wallop this thing with it, all while still shouting verses in unison with everyone else. I joined in, and whatever this thing was hissed in pain and sprinted off on all fours. The small burst of adrenaline wore off and I was left absolutely bewildered at what had just happened. When I asked Hamaspro about it, he just shrugged and said to me, "Ghouls, I guess." Like it was just another regular, everyday encounter.
This happened 6 months ago. May. My married sister came home to visit. That night, she's in my mother's room. At that moment, my mother was in the kitchen. My mom enters my room and says my sister is talking to herself in literary Arabic. We're from Tunisia, so we only talk the Tunisian Arabic dialect. We never learned literary Arabic, but we understand it a little. She's obviously being possessed by a jinn. Panic.jpg. The door is shut. We're listening to what she says. She's reciting the Quran in a bizarre way. It doesn't sound like her usual voice, and she's extending every vowel. My mom opens the door and enters the room. She draws the door back behind her, not closing it. My mom actually talks literary Arabic contrary to me and my sister. The jinn, who is talking through my sister, immediately asks my mom to close the door completely. She doesn't care much, she has more important questions to ask. The jinn insists and wants the door closed. She closes the door. I stay outside, listening. She asks the jinn why they possessed my sister. The jinn answers to protect her from her husband. My mom says to leave her alone. The jinn says he means no harm, he wants to help her. For a while they keep that exchange, my mom asking the jinn to leave and the jinn saying he wants to save my sister. Think.wmv. If I don't enter this room right now, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. I enter the room. My sister immediately looks at me. We're staring at each other. This lasts 3 seconds. My sister turns at my mother and asks, "Why did you let my brother enter the room?" My mom kicks me out of the room. Back in the corridor, I'm still shaking. They continued to talk for a while. They were negotiating. The Djinn keeps saying he's not evil and wants to help. My mom rejects everything he says and asks him to leave. At some point, the Djinn gives up and leaves. My sister is back. She says she's tired.
Got a few. I live in Saudi Arabia and a lot of the elderly believe in the existence of Djinn, basically entities created from fire who are invisible to sight unless they take the form of a human or animal. They have families and life spans just like humans. Be 6 years old. Grandmother is like 92. Alzheimer's, personality dissociation, you name it. Family visits her every day nonetheless. One day she leaves the room for 15 minutes, then comes back and starts talking in a different cadence and general tone of speech. Says she's a Djinn Father, and that our family is good. We brush it off and just agree with her because she's an old lady. Every time we visit now she leaves after a while and comes back, possessed. We just roll with it. Mother tells me to go play outside when it happens. Playing outside be throwing rocks when a crow lands near me. We stare at each other for a while before I just shoo it away. Later go back inside. Grandmother says, one of my children wanted to play with you, why didn't you let him? What? Family turns to look at me, then back at grandmother. What are you talking about? My son, he came as a crow, why did you shoo him away? All my nope. No way to see outside from the room. They were around each other the entire time.
I have been researching Djinns a lot. I found something about them amusing. According to Islamic scholars, they live almost like humans do. They have free will, which means they can be good or bad. The bad ones are usually called shayatin. They have communities, families, and they can have different religions. Muslims usually only consider the Muslim Djinns good. There are different types of Djinn and how they are defined varies. This made me wonder that since there are different types of Djinn and they have free will, that must mean there are racist Djinn, which is funny to think about. Maybe that's why a certain World War II leader seemed to always miraculously avoid death, and why he told Mussolini that Hyperborean spirits dwelt within him. Anyway, everyone has a personal Djinn called a carrion, which incites them to do and think certain things that are almost always bad. There's other names for it in different religions, and the Jungian shadow resembles one. There's a whole lot to discuss on this topic, many things to be realized. It's worth noting that not all of them are monstrous, some are gorgeous in appearance. To continue, they tend to live a lot longer than us, many can be thousands of years old. This explains why one can inquire about the past from them. You can inquire about the future too, but that involves more powerful Djinns. All of this is haram according to Islam, so if you are convinced of their teachings, you shouldn't do these. It's difficult to do either way, although certain divination practices are a milder version of working with Djinns. Djinns can possess people much like demons, but it is said that the Djinns intending to harm you are easier to banish than the other one, which include Djinns that have fallen in love with you. One can marry a Djinn and supposedly produce offspring, but this too is considered haram. Most cases of divination and precognition according to Islamic scholars are because of Djinns called merid that fly close to heaven to eavesdrop on the conversations of angels, which they relay to a person who is practicing the arts. Why they do this and what they gain from it is something I have been thinking but have yet to find a compelling answer.
The sorcerers have a way of controlling and enslaving the Djinn, making them do whatever they want. But in Islamic tradition, this corrupts the soul in an almost irreversible way and leads to eternal hell in the afterlife. Thus the concept of selling your soul to the devil.
There are many stories in my country, especially in the rural areas, of Djinns falling in love with pretty girls and boys and taking them away with them, God knows where. They are almost never found. That's why people make their kids wear tabbage and stuff. Every person from the Middle East will likely have some story involving Djinn circulating within his family. There's a chance of randomly encountering them in different forms, but if you do encounter one like that, it's usually the non-hostile kind. Djinn can be summoned to one's lair, but there it will be pretty much random which one you get. Summoning causes them pain, that's why encounters with powerful Djinn in this manner can end in the death of the summoner unless they absolutely know what they're doing.
My wife's cousin can see Djinns. They've been tormenting him for many years, and he told her he has offspring with them. This dude is strange according to my wife because he has psychic powers. He also told her Djinns or something that isn't human runs this world.
Why are they tormenting him? Did he do something to annoy them, or are they just shayatin? I think he should go to an imam or something, or maybe flail around with a sword and chainmail because apparently Djinns are afraid of iron.
Not the one you are asking, but if I had to guess, I would say it's related to his blood. There is a particular rare bloodline or something like this that attracts Djinn. Many such cases.
Let me clear up some stuff for you guys. Djinns have free will and live amongst us and can choose to reveal themselves anytime. They are usually in places away from humans, and as they have free will like us, their possibilities are endless. For all we know, they could have their own police force. Interacting with Djinns is not forbidden, however, engaging with them through magic is. Nobody can tell the future besides God. This is a firm belief. Djinns can possess humans and fall in love with them, and when they do, it is considered very dangerous as they become obsessive. I am not sure how they get rid of them, but I assume it is done by reciting verses from the Quran. Djinns are the beings that help you do magic. You summon them and they will help you out, but there is a price. The price you pay is that you must defile the teachings of God. So this could be smearing religious texts with shit or period blood. Once this is done and you want to perform grander forms of magic, you must do even more by getting other people involved and making them defile God, or by doing even more messed up stuff. Most Djinns just keep to themselves, and it is believed in Islam when they do decided to have too much fun and engage with you, you recite verses from the Quran and angels will protect you, but it is a matter of the strength of your faith. They keep Djinns in check because these beings have lots of powers compared to humans. Also, wearing talismans is a very iffy thing to do because you don't know what someone is writing on them. When you look into magic in Islam, there is a lot of astronomy involved and the use of numbers. This is all stuff I have had a glance at, but there is information out there if you do enough research. One thing I do remember is that when it comes to doing magic on someone by messing with them, an object must be placed in a relevant area that coincides with the victim's star sign. So for example, Pisces, an object would have to be placed in water. This is just from my memory, I could be incorrect, but there are different locations that these things must be placed. So, water will go in a drain near the house, air will go on a tree or something. Regarding the numbers, a lot of these numbers are usually related to verses from the Quran and they are twisted to spell something else out, defiling the teachings of God. The bad Djinns are essentially like demons. The devil is believed to be a Djinn and not an angel. Djinns existed before humans. I believe it was said somewhere that this world was initially inhabited by them. But the funny thing is, as Djinns have free will just like us humans, there will be assholes when people encounter beings during DMT trips. I believe they are encountering Djinns and are getting screwed most of the time. We don't know the full extent of their powers, but deals can be done with them.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.